All right, all right, all
All
right, all
right.
right. We are live. Okay, let's do
Awesome.
the thing of going into our Facebook first to share. And then after we share, we can then go full steam into the questions. Okay, let's share. And I can share in groups. And I'll share with several groups like Super Remy Club. Share to a group. Trainer Synergy.
Oh, you're really inside a lot of groups, huh?
No, I started a lot of groups.
Oh, that's even more awesome.
Yeah.
There's this
First,
saying, I think by Alan Kay, the inventor of the graphical user interface, right? He said
yeah.
like the best way to predict the future is to create it.
Wow, yes. Very good point.
Yeah,
Yeah. Oh, I always forget to share on my actual Facebook page as well.
can.
Yeah. Join us now. Share now. Wonderful. We are fully on board now. Okay, first of all, I apologize for being 5 minutes late because I just ended a webinar.
Yep. I know you're a busy person.
And I know today is very busy for you also.
Yes,
Yeah.
it is. Yep.
So let's talk a little bit about you. Yeah, because you're very, very unique in almost every way I can think of.
Oh, really? Yeah.
Yeah. So let's talk about this word first. Okay. Let's
Yes.
address the elephant in the room. What is a thinkerer? What's that?
Yeah. So this is a very interesting word, right? And the aha moment, right, was when I think it was one of the sessions with you, and then we were
Yes.
brainstorming different ways to describe what I've been doing like in my life.
Yeah.
And then I realized, right, it falls between two things, right, that I have been working on since young.
Yes.
One is I really love thinking about things, right?
Yes.
Thinking about the future, thinking about the past, which is history,
Yeah.
right? At the same time, about thinking about concepts, right? About like what, even like questions like what is knowledge, right? What
Yes.
is engineering? What is science, right?
Yeah.
What is philosophy, right? And then I realized that I'm like throughout my life growing up, thinking more than thinking, I also enjoy tinkering, right? And I think this is something which I kind of like got brushed from my family, right? And my grandparents actually. So my grandfather, right?
Making things and like
Correct.
fixing things, right?
Yes, making,
Ah.
fixing, building, right? Creating things. So when I was growing up at Gimor, right? So my grandfather, right, will sometimes look at the what people dispose downstairs,
Yeah.
right? And then like sometimes, right, he will bring items upstairs, and then he will make it new, right?
Oh.
So literally, right, at my home, right, there is a grandfather's clock, like literally because he repaired a clock, right? And this was my grandfather. My grandmother, on the other hand, right, is during like Hari Raya, she will collect orders for like kueh. She will
Right.
even make like tailoring, right? So I remember like seeing her using, the old Singer sewing
Oh yeah,
machine,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
Yeah. And that was how I kind of like got into this whole idea of like building and creating things, like even at your own home, right? So it was my grandparents, and then my parents are both like engineering trained, right? And that idea was just like in primary school, they have these worksheets and like work textbooks on like inventors, right? And then there's a lot of story, they try different things. So that's when I started to build my own things, lah, right? So build stuff, and then build my own plant press, right? Do experiments. Yeah. So thinkerer as a word is like, it's a combination of two words, right? Thinking and tinkering, right?
Yeah.
So when you combine, it's thinkering, lah. Yeah. So I kind of like that it's kind of a cool word. I heard it's a French word called portmanteau.
Oh,
Portmanteau means you combine two words to form one word.
Pomanto. Okay.
Portmanteau, yeah. I learned the new word, yeah.
Okay, so now I know. Hey, can you give me an example of something you tinker with, like on an ongoing basis in the past 2-3 years?
Yeah, so for the last 2-3 years, I've been working on like one prototype, right, which is a floating farm,
Did
right?
you say floating pump?
Yeah, floating farm.
Okay.
Yeah.
What does it mean?
So what does it mean? So it's literally wait, yeah. So this is the prototype.
Yeah. Oh, it's there.
Yeah.
Wow,
So,
lovely.
yeah. So technically, right, if let's say like in Singapore, right, we don't have much land, correct?
Mm.
But what if we expand our ability to grow things to our reservoirs, to our ponds, to our lakes? So we are not really limited by land per se, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So technically, it's growing like food or plants in water, lah. Yeah. So basically, we've been experimenting different versions of these different plants. Yeah, and I still remember before circuit breaker, Singapore was pretty hot. So I was in the farmlands at Lim Chu Kang, right? And over there, it was very hot. The soil was very dry. So I was with one of the farmers over there, and the farmers were like, was passing me some of these like vegetables, like almost dying vegetables. And then they like, hey, just try see whether you can revive these plants. Yeah. So I kind of like transplanted some of these almost dying plants to my floating like farming system, and then I put it at one of the kind of a small pond lah.
Yep.
And then the weird thing is circuit breaker came, right? So circuit breaker means you cannot. I mean, all of us are stuck at home, and then
Yes.
we can't go out and water the plants. So apparently after the circuit breaker, one of the farmers took a photo lah, right, of that pond. And then he messaged me lah. Then when he passed me the photo, I'm like, wow, so cool. Where is this? What is this? Because it was literally a bush of
Oh,
laksa.
okay.
Yeah, so I didn't know that was the floating. That was what was growing out of my floating farm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was like the so we tried different things. So we also like included like electronics. So we put like IoT sensors. IoT means Internet of Things.
Oh,
So
okay. IoT. Yeah.
so basically, like the idea that you can actually connect like water sensor, temperature sensor. You put it on the plant, and then basically you can detect the water quality and the water hot or not, right? Yeah. So basically, when because the way it's Internet of Things, right? So I can actually transfer those information to the cloud, right, to the internet.
Yeah.
So I don't have to be there, so I can track from home, lah, right, to know what's the water quality like. Yeah. So the cool thing is right, the fish like to hide under the floating farm lah. Yeah. So basically it's kind of like a small ecosystem. Then most recently the farmer say, hey, I think now we've got frogs living on your floating platform. Then okay lah, happy lah. So it's like a whole.
There's a frog also.
Got frogs living on the floating platform.
Where is this again? Which part of Singapore?
Lim Chu Kang
Lim
area.
Chu Kang. Okay.
Yeah. I mean the hope is that if we can expand this to more around Singapore, or maybe even around the world, I think it'll be quite an interesting major experiment lah. Yeah.
I mean, definitely it will be it's the way to go. Singapore imports almost every food.
Yeah.
All of us know how to do this for our own family. Then we are like a urban farm, right?
Yes.
Then we can continue to work as a banker, accountant, engineer, whatever. Come home and eat our own vegetables.
Exactly. So so actually now I'm also trying to grow seafood. Right?
Seafood.
So
you mean fish?
Like crabs and mussels and like prawns.
Okay.
Yeah.
Also using the same kind of system.
I mean not floating lah, but basically it's a rack lah. So stay tuned lah. I'm still experimenting it. Right. Okay. Hopefully someday when I just heard that the crabs just arrived. So hopefully in a few weeks or months time, maybe we can like harvest some seafood from the lab, and then maybe invite you or what lah to.
I want to try. It's okay. Life is short. Let's make it shorter.
Yeah. Okay. So I mean, this is what I've been tinkering with lah. I mean, food is an issue lah. Yeah.
Let's talk about a little bit of your history. Okay. So right now, obviously, you are almost like the James Bond Q, right?
No.
Like people go to your lab and then you start to say like this one explodes, this one can shoot laser. Lots of things around you. Very exciting. Yeah. But the difference is Q makes weapons to kill people lah. Yeah, but you make things to help people. Right?
Yeah, so it's very interesting. So when you say like people create all these inventions to kill, right?
Yeah.
I feel maybe it's about time, right, that we also start to think about inventions that heal.
Wow.
Right. Yeah. And I had the great fortune of like interviewing a Cambodian inventor, right, who designed like robots to demine.
Yep.
Right. Yeah. And to me, he because he experienced it himself, and his family members, some of his relatives died, right, because they stepped on the mine.
Right.
Yeah. So it's this kind of inventions that I hope more will kind of like work and embark on.
Yeah.
And you are very right, lah. So the like, so there's a whole big weapons and arms industry, right? And I also want to believe there's also a similar industry for like meaningful impact and for healing the world, technically. Yeah.
I'm fully in support. Fully. Let's talk about history. When you studied, right?
Yes.
Did you know that you're going to do this?
No, totally.
Don't know. Then what do you study when you do?
So growing up from primary school to secondary school, I've always wanted to become a doctor.
Doctor, okay.
Yeah. So, but also because I think it's like in the family, it's like, oh, like hopefully can become a doctor, be in a medical career and stuff like that. So literally I grew up taking biology, life sciences, learn about the anatomy, right? And I love drawing, like biological drawings, right, of the human organs and stuff like that, right? And somehow I went for the medical interview and it just didn't work out, lah.
Okay.
So that was a hit, lah, to me. And this is the funny thing, right? So I have a very good asthma doctor, right? That I grew up with, lah. And she's one of the person who inspired me to become a doctor, right? Because the way how she helped me improve my asthmatic condition, right, and my health. And then after the interview process, I went to meet her, and she said, don't worry, there are many other ways to contribute other than being a doctor. Maybe someday if you can't become a doctor, maybe someday you invent things, right, that can help doctors.
Wow.
Right? Or maybe you can help even administer like a hospital, or you can also contribute to healing others, lah, but in different ways. Yeah. So that was
very good advice.
Yeah, to me that advice alone was to kind of like see things in a bigger, like health as a bigger thing.
Ecosystem.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So because for me growing up, I'm like, because we always keep asking, right, our children, right, what do you want to become when you grow up? It's a very common question, right? And we only know certain careers that are very popular, right? Yeah. So growing up, okay, I want to become a doctor, right? Yeah. But then she made me realize that around the doctor, right, there's a whole ecosystem. Yeah. And the funny thing is, when I came back from Silicon Valley and I decided to pursue my studies, I did healthcare policy, right, at Lee Kuan Yew School. Yeah. Right? And that made me open up my perception of health in a bigger perspective. And then, don't know lah, I think I sway, right? So there was one topic no one wanted to pick up, and then my prof was like, Ibnur, you go and study mental health, okay?
Mental health.
Yeah. And then people was like, because all my, because I was the youngest in the class, right? Because all the rest are like seniors, lah, right? In the Lee Kuan Yew School. So he said, okay, Ibnur, only left with the mental health topic. I think you just do this, lah, right? So I did an ecosystem study of mental health, and it was a very unpopular topic. I had to like speak to caregivers, people who manage like mental health, psychosocial services. Yep. And that's when I realized that mental health will be a big issue in Singapore within the next 10 years, and true enough, right? The next 10 years, which is last year, right? I think President Madam Halimah shared about the importance of mental health, and then with circuit breaker, right? So the funny thing is, so this is the weird thing, right? So I study things which I think about, and then now I'm trying to tinker about like how do we manage this, right? So back then I was being assigned to do mental health, and then I also kena assigned to do pandemic, like they call it health security, health security. Okay, health security. Yeah. I didn't expect the two to come together. When the last year COVID-19 hit us, right? That was an overlap of the two studies, which I treat as being separate, right? And the two just whack, right? Not just Singapore, but the whole world, right? Together, right? Yeah, and sometimes people say, you know, sometimes you know, when we all study these things, right? Then is it really relevant or not in the future?
Yeah.
Right? So when you are doing it, sometimes you may not realize that you may think, okay, not relevant lah, right? Okay, kena assign mental health, then do mental health law. Kena assign pandemic, then just study law.
Yeah.
But then later in the future, right? If when the two worlds start to intersect, right? Then I felt very grateful for my class, for my professor and the rigor that we went through to understand the complexity around health. Yeah, so that was to me kind of like a very ecosystem perspective of how we can make change.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. So first of all, what I learned from your story is we may want to do something. You know, I want to be engineer, I want to be film director. Yeah, but the universe has other plans. Yeah, and we learn how to sort of tinker with our own life as well. You know, experiment, use design thinking, adapt, prototype it. You know, just that it's not with a machine, it's with our life. Yeah, then we will still end up fulfilling our purpose.
Yes.
You know, which is you wanted to help people as a doctor, now you're helping people through being an engineer, through being a scientist, through being a tinkerer. Yeah, so that's beautiful. Can we talk about education? Education, right? Since we're on this topic, I understand you actually help kids and youths and all that, right? Like science center in schools. Can you elaborate a little bit on this front?
Yes. So education is something that I feel very passionate about, and currently right, ever since circuit breaker, I've been educating like almost the whole spectrum, right? So like I think today is like one of the craziest across the spectrum kind of educational experience. I rarely have this, right? Because it's a March school holidays, right? I had this experience. So basically in the morning, right, I was on Zoom, right, with a cohort getting mid-career professionals equipped, right, with robotic automation skills. That was in the morning, right? And then later on, closer to noon, I had to catch up with teachers, right, in a high school here in Singapore, right? Because they are trying to educate their other trainers in design thinking. So basically, I was sharing with them, right, some of the best practices that we do in our course of work, right? And then later on in the afternoon, right, I have children from low-income families, right, coordinated to experience carpentry, right, to make art using out of wood, right, at the Kampong campus, right, and then at the end of the day, essentially was kind of like relooking at how we can equip more of our mid-career professionals who are recently retrenched, right, to go back into the industries, right? Yeah. So basically, in a way, today has been like education from the young to all the way to the old, and to me, this is like what you say, right? So it's not something which I planned for, and maybe this is what the universe kind of like pushed me to do. It helped me see two things, right? So when I work with the adults, right? These are fathers, mothers, right? And we speak to them and they share, you know, I want to get this, and some of them shared, I want to get these skills, right? Be it robotics, Internet of Things, Industry 4.0 skills, so that I can actually educate my children. So this is a story which I get from the adult learners. And then when I go to the young ones, they were like, yeah, I see my daddy do this, right? Or I've seen people do this, right? And I want to also make cool things, right? And I was being heartened by one boy yesterday during one of the carpentry class, and I asked, so what would you want to be when you grow up? And then he was, I rarely hear this from kids. I want to become an inventor. They're like, huh?
Wow.
I want to become an inventor. Yeah, so his name is Hassan, right? So if Hassan, if you are out there and you hear me, so I'll keep pursuing that passion, right? So he wants to become an inventor, and then I I shared with him that I'm an inventor as well. And then he was shocked for a while. I think the idea of a Singaporean inventor is kind of like, it can't be true, right? Because most of the time the stories of inventors they hear are usually from Western countries, right? From overseas,
and
right?
Because you don't have the white hair and very messy.
Yeah, the Albert Einstein, right? And then someone I young somewhere, right?
Yeah.
And then he said, "Hey, Abang, how can I want to become one?" And then I shared, always ask questions, right?
Yeah.
That's number one. Then number two is be like, don't be afraid to try new things, right? And then if you fail, right, try again, right? So I shared with him kind of like some of the inventions lah. So there's a bamboo speaker, right, which I think it's a bamboo speaker.
Bamboo speaker. Wow.
Yeah, so it's like a this IBAM, right? So it's a bamboo speaker.
How does it work?
So you put your mobile phone inside.
Oh.
And then it will amplify the sound. Yeah.
Wow. Not
electronics.
Electricity.
Correct. It's by physics. It's physics. Yeah.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah. So when people ask, also like in terms of education, right? So there are many ways you can educate. So there's the classroom way, right? So I've been growing up in the classroom way, right? So not that I'm totally against it, and I feel that there's a place for kind of a classroom learning environment.
That's true.
And then what I also realized that there is also the real world kind of like the world as a classroom, right?
Yeah.
So essentially what I try to do, and especially to those the children from low income or those who can't really access I would say expensive technology tools, right? We try to do that. Yeah. So in the coming weeks, right, we will also try to bring in like virtual reality, kind of a education to some of the those who can't afford, right? And this way I feel again it's about healing the gap, right? So the in terms of education, usually, right, is that we learn from many ways, or we learn in many ways, right? So
multiple touch points.
Yes, multiple touch points. Some people learn it best in school. For me, I learn best in labs, right? So like I usually will ace my practicals in school, and I usually like to sneak into the lab area, and I'll ask the technician, "Hey, can I get that chemical, this chemical, right? Do different kind of experiments, right?" Yeah, and I mean some people, others flourish more outdoors, right? And they do experiments outdoors, and that's what I try to do is to kind of bring kind of the real world to them, right? In different ways. Yeah, so people might say, oh, so does it is the focus of or the purpose of education is it to get employed? So there is that perspective. Yes, one way is to get yourself with the skill set to get employed. To me, being raised and also I have a very good mentor, right? His name is Lai Hawk. He always reminds me that one of the key purpose of education is to be a better human being.
Oh.
Right, and this is not easy, right? It's a very nice kind of phrase, right? But usually to become a better human being requires not just skill set in terms of your hand, and it's not just cognitive in terms of the head, but a lot to do with the heart. Yeah. Right. So things about like how can we be more compassionate? How can we be more caring? Right? How do we live our values? Right? How can we be more forgiving? How can we? Yeah. So these are things that you learn through life experiences, right? How do you go through struggle, right? How do you become a better leader, right? How do you become a better son, a better father, right? So a lot of these kind of things you can actually also pick up in school. I'm grateful to I'm blessed to have good teachers, right, who not just talk about the skill sets, right, but also inculcate in me certain, I'll say, life skills lah. Yeah, and then for quite a lot of us, we also have our own faith, right? So spirituality is also actually a very important way of being educated, right? And I think the future of education is no longer linear. And it's like it's a bit like a tree lah, right? One of the metaphors which Lai Hawk shared with me is like education is like planting a seed and kind of like literally growing a tree lah, where the fruits you may not even see in a short term, right? And you may not even see it. So like you may pass away, right? For example. Yeah. So Lai Hock, when he was literally kind of like building up an eco village here in Singapore, right? So basically he planted that seed, right? And then people started to come to the village and kind of like do this farming and kampong, trying to revive this kampong spirit. And then we built up the kampong campus, right? And the kind of the fruits out of the kampong, he will not be able to see it, right? But it's slowly giving birth to many movements around Singapore. Yeah, so education is a long game, right? If you want to talk about in terms of like a timeline, it's a long game, and the risk of being very narrow in our approach to education can actually make us more vulnerable, right? In a highly VUCA world, right? So for example, if let's say we never start educating our young on sustainability, right, or on taking care of the environment, right, and we carry on as if the earth is not a living thing, right? As if it's going to produce all the food that we need, all the water that we need, right, all the oxygen that we need, and then when we 10 to 20 to 30 years from now, then we don't have people who are educated in that. And then they won't be able to kind of like come up with solutions that the world is going to face, right? And then we'll get stuck, right? And basically it can be a cycle, right? So like the people talk about the poverty cycle, right? Then there's also like a knowledge poverty, right? Like where if we do not start now, right, in kind of like grooming our future change makers, our future leaders, our future inventors, future innovators, right, future entrepreneurs, then when the time arrives, right, we may be in deep shit, right, lack of a better word. And it's best to kind of like equip people with kind of a wide skill set, right? So at least so what my professor shared with me is like, in order to be safe, right, have at least, he has this like M philosophy lah. Have three no three knowledge domains. Right. So in case the kind of like one domain get affected, right, you still have two domains to lean on and survive on. Yeah. So in a way, if let's say the three, right, and let's say one is you happen to be very good at in hospitality, for example, right, as a domain, right, and true enough, right, if let's say you have the other two skill set, when COVID hit, right, you have the other two skill set to pursue. And that's when he always reminds us, don't be too like narrow and in a way too hyper focused lah. I know people like the word focus. There is a place for that. Right? Especially as craftsmen, right? Yeah, you need focus to build good things. Right? But don't be too hyper focused, right? That you are solely dependent on one kind of skill set or one kind of knowledge domain, right? Because when something like drastic happens to the ecosystem and that whole domain is being rendered either irrelevant or just rendered what do you call this?
Redundant.
Redundant just for that moment, right? You can still pivot a while to the others, and then later on when it come back, you just jump back lah.
I fully embrace that, because last year all my corporate training gone. Because everybody's wondering like, hey, let's wait for COVID to be over before starting to train again. But COVID wasn't over, so the training just dragged on and never happened. So imagine if people like us, like two of us both are into corporate training and it totally dried up, then we would have died. No income. But thankfully there's two other things. So for you, I know you have many other things. For me, I have the financial coaching and I also have the life coaching. So those two sort of mushroomed and multiplied during COVID-19. Thank you for your. I like your. Basically, education is like a spider web. The way I see it.
Ooh, I like that metaphor.
Because no matter what shape you put into it, there's always something else that you didn't think of. For example, like going to a hawker center, eating there, and then an old lady come and sell tissue paper to you. That is education. How the parents behave. Do they like swat the old lady away like flies? Do they lie? Do they haggle? Say, $1 for 3 packets, so expensive? Or do they express kindness? All these are education. And then if they allow their children to go and order food by themselves, right? Like give them $5, say, hey, go and buy our nasi lemak, and then see whether they count the change or not. Whether they manage to take the plate, have motor skill, and come back without the plate spilling on the ground. All these education. And then the son favorite store, maybe yu zha kueh or kueh kueh, and then close down. Now does he like throw tantrum? Say, I don't eat already. Right? Or they'll say like, yeah, it's fine. Let's move on and choose another food. That's education.
Yes. And it's very interesting that you raised this. So people think, all these kind of values thing, it feels very it's very intangible, right?
Yeah.
I think there was a review. What kind of is it Harvard Business or one of the kind of the Ivy League schools lah. So they were doing a research on like if we were to re-educate, right, like our generations, right, what would they change, right? And they were actually looking at how Enron, a lot of the financial collapses, right, were a result of the lack of character education in the young of all these people who later on will get a lot of authority and power and capital. Right? Yeah. So basically so again, education is a long journey, and sometimes we forget, right? Sometimes it's the values if not done right at the young age, right? When they get older and they are being equipped, right, with authority, power, finances, and capital, it can actually affect the whole world, right? Yeah. So these are things, right, that we usually don't really see because it's very far, right? Education, like, how would this small thing be like, or what would saying thank you to an auntie matter, right? Yeah. So these are things that we don't see, but if you talk to people who kind of like trying to see and all the challenges of the world, like the world problems, right? Actually, quite a lot of them actually, when they dig, right, it goes back to the kind of the value system held by the various
basic integrity, basic. Right? You cannot even keep your words. You cannot even do proper accounting that is accurate. Everything else collapsed already. It's like a virus that spreads across the whole Enron, the whole Lehman Brothers, the whole NKF. I mean, there are so many stories across history where people's values affect financial system, politics, and even nuclear. Fukushima nuclear plant, the leakage is due to these people doing slipshod work. They haven't even done the basic safety check. Can you believe it? You work for a nuclear plant and you don't even do basic safety check. Or because you're procrastinating, you're lazy. This is your values affecting the ocean. Just now you talk about education being multifaceted. And one of the areas you said, even your faith, right? Your faith, whether it's going to the mosque, temple, church, or even doing, meditation at home, all these affect you as a person, whether you become a better person or not a better person, right? And you did say education is to lead us to become a better person instead of
better human being.
Job. Yeah, a better human being. So let's talk about faith for a while. You were involved in an interfaith something. What was it?
So I was involved in the the pioneering batch of something called the Singapore Interfaith Youth.
Yeah.
So this was many years back, right, when I was still in university.
Yeah.
And it was kind of like in a way a life experiment, right? So I've been growing up with friends of different faiths, and this is very weird, right? So like when people say, hey, so your who's your best friend in primary school? They would think that my best friend is a Malay lah. No, my best friend is not a Malay. My best friend is a Chinese Catholic, a devout Chinese Catholic. Yeah.
Okay, I did not know that. You can share a little bit more.
Yeah, and basically I grew up in primary school, doing projects with him and other friends, and you know, when we do projects at that age, sometimes we go to each other's homes, right? So I went to his house, and then his mom was there, and sometimes we kind of like ask. I'm being curious, right? Each other, we ask each other about each other's faith, lah. So it kind of like, it started out from like curious questions, and then starting to kind of understand, like what being a Catholic is, what being a Muslim is, and then later on, as I grew up, more, I think the intersection between different faiths becomes more obvious, and for me it was, so September 11 was the one of the periods, right, when I felt that there was actually the moment when when it happened, like I'm like, in my mind it's like, oh dear, like I'm a Muslim, and then it's like, so basically, being a Muslim post September 11, right, at that point of time, I'm like, I'm gonna grow up into this world, right, where people will, the people will, whether intentionally or unintentionally, right, associate Islam with terrorism, right, or with negative things, right? So I'm gonna grow up in that world, right, or rather in this world, right? And then later on, in university, that was when I was being exposed to more interfaith work, actually through a leadership course, actually. So basically, in that course, I studied the Analects, or we were being asked to study the Confucius Analects, right? Then we studied the Old Testament, right, and then several texts from Machiavelli, so different texts, lah, right, across civilizations, and then I was looking at Ibn Khaldun, which is the book is called the Mukaddimah, which apparently Mark Zuckerberg, right, the founder of Facebook, also reads, right. So basically, looking at different perspectives, right, of different faiths, and how to lead one's life, and how to become actually how to live as a human being, right, in a respective faith, makes me makes me a bit more appreciative of both the differences, but also the similarities, or what I call the common ground across the different faiths. And when the Singapore Interfaith Youth had a kind of like an application process, right? So I went through that, and that's when I met up with friends who are from who's also Muslims, but they are from a different kind of different sect, right? So in Islam, there's like the Sunni, and then you have the Shia. Right? So I have friends who are from the Shia denomination, and then I met up with friends from the Christian faith, the Hindu faith, and then there is something called the Baha'i faith, right? So we went to different places of worship, right? And that's when I kind of like learned a bit more about not just the kind of the theological stories or the theological underpinnings of the various faiths, but also the cultures and the practices, right? Like I was very impressed for the Sikh community. They have the gurdwaras, and they also serve food, right? To people, to almost anyone, right? You need food, you come to Gurdwara and they will serve you, right? And that's how different how they kind of like serve, right? Serve their faith, right? And it was also interesting at that point of time. We were having a program, right? And I was very engrossed in the program and the process. And then my Christian friend was like, don't forget to pray, right? The time's gonna be up. And then I didn't know, right? It wasn't just a reminder. He actually set up the whole prayer area with the prayer mat facing the Qiblat, which is towards Mecca, right? Right, in the room, and say, I already set up the place for you, right? You just need to quickly do your prayers before the timing ends, and then carry on with the session. And these are like interfaith experiences which are in a way a bit unheard of, right? It's not very common, and this is something which I learned here in Singapore. The other one was when I go overseas, right? Then the interfaith interactions gets even higher, right? I think the one which I recently shared on Facebook was I was in Indonesia, and I drank something not very good lah, right? So I ended up vomiting and like got into severe dehydration, and I was rushed to the hospital.
Right.
And this hospital it was manned by Catholic nuns. Right. Yeah. So basically I was rushed into the kind of the emergency room, and they quickly kind of like IV me and like make sure I quickly get hydrated lah. Yeah. So literally that was a life and death kind of a situation, which kind of like made me be very grateful and also be very thankful, right? That in that part of Indonesia there is this kind of a intercultural, interfaith understanding, right? Where it doesn't matter whether I'm a Muslim or not Muslim, I just get rushed to a hospital managed by Catholic nuns, right? Yeah, and I think and ever since then I'm very appreciative of people who are very devoted to their faith, right? And especially especially for those who kind of like sacrifice a lot. Right? Because I know some of them sacrifice money, right? Some of them sacrifice their like marriage and comfort, right? To be with the poor, to be with the weak, right? So these are things which I also learn about in interfaith work. So there's actually a lot to dig and explore in interfaith work itself. And I'm not saying that that there are differences. So there are meaningful differences that are worth discussing, right? And so I'm not of the perspective of because the common thread that we keep hearing is that every faith is the same, right? So for me, I don't believe in that.
Actually, that's disrespectful, right? Because every faith has a unique difference, and you go around telling people it's the same lah, it's the same lah. You might as well go around and tell all the parents. Say, I never mind lah. The children just exchange home. It's all the same anyway. Parents are parents. Hey, hello, these are my parents. What are you talking about?
Yeah. So for me, it's like it's kind of the time for us to kind of like understand each other's faith and respect, right? The various faiths in terms of like the principles. I mean, there could be kind of like unhappiness that could have emerged, right? Or tensions that emerge between different faiths due to different cultural histories and stuff like that. But that shouldn't stop us from kind of like participating towards a common good, lah, right? So
I mean, there's this onion theory, right? Onion, where what you see is just the outside, like your food is different, right? The way you eat maybe is different. No, but that's just the outside. Then we peel, right? Then we say, hey, maybe the dressing is different. Maybe your prayer time is different. Your prayer direction is different. Yeah. Then we peel some more. Yeah. Then we peel to the core, right? It's called human being. Yeah. And that human being of respect, of friendship, love. Yeah, that is the same. Yeah, but just because, like for example, two of us went to watch a movie, right?
Oh yeah, I remember that one.
This is not my mother's baking.
Oh, that's a good one actually. Actually, I recommend for all of you listening to this talk, right? If ever that movie comes up again, right? It's a local movie, right? I recommend you go and watch. Okay. Yeah.
It's amazing. I mean, this is not a spoiler, lah. This is in the synopsis, right? A Muslim lady, can choose between a Muslim man to marry or a Chinese man who sells roast pork. And like, why purposely go and choose the roast pork one? And I'm so surprised that Singapore government allow the movie to be shown, right? And then to my shock, okay, as a Chinese who eats roast pork, I am shocked that in the movie there is a Muslim character who actually eats roast pork.
Yeah. I'm like,
I was like, oh.
Yeah. I was also shocked myself. I'm like, seriously?
OMG. And yet, you see, there's no riot, on the street. Nobody has killed the film director, who is a Muslim, by the way. Yeah, so I think Singapore, in a way, has matured, right, over the years. Yeah, because in certain other countries, you may have riots, people burning each other's shop house, which happened in Singapore, in the early days, right? People eating cars, burning each other's kampongs. Yeah. So I'm very thankful actually where we come to a place where we can, like you and me, I'm a Christian and you are a
Yes.
Muslim, and we can go and watch a movie about a Muslim marrying a Chinese who sells roast pork, and we can have go coffee after the movie and discuss about the plot.
Yes. Yeah. So you're right. So I mean we are kind of blessed, right, blessed in a way. I mean, I lived in the US for a while
Yeah.
as well, right, and you can sense, right, the tension between different faiths, and coming back to Singapore, I mean, I wish more could be done, right, in this area where different faiths work hand in hand and work closely together.
Yeah.
And when I also share this, not to kind of also distance those who are like secular or humanists, right, which kind of don't believe in God or divine power, right? So basically, like I think we have kind of like matured to a time where we can actually participate, right, in nation building safely,
Yes.
safely, right? So there are still like a lot of other issues that have yet to be properly dissected and properly addressed, right? I think this is a process where as citizens we have to kind of like see whether can we mature more, right?
Yes.
To kind of like uh, get a better understanding of each other, and then kind of figure out is there a kind of a new vision forward for Singapore lah.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think for interfaith, although it sounds so different, I mean, we started with Thinkerer, science, engineering, being a doctor. Then we talk about sustainability and urban floating farm and education. And then now interfaith. It sounds like we are discussing 10 different topics tonight. Yeah, but it's actually the common thread, right? It is about constant exploration. Yeah. So all of us, like both of us, we are like in outer space. Just that we don't have to wear spacesuit. And we are constantly exploring life, exploring science, exploring values, exploring sustainability and respect.
Yeah.
And I think
So,
that
so
sorry.
So when you're saying all those, right? So there's like the outer space and there's also the inner space, right? Yeah, that we sometimes forget.
Inner space. We need to be alone and explore. What do I stand for? Where is my line to draw? Am I drawing it too close to myself where everything triggers me? Am I drawing it too far away until I have no values anymore? Where is my line? And am I living life according to that line?
Yes. And I really miss I kind of really miss a lot of that quiet moment out in nature, and I not so much to diss Singapore for not having such spaces, but the ability to when you can travel overseas sometimes, right, and you have like time to be alone and just be quiet.
Yes.
It helps. I still remember there was one time where I think I had my last $10 in my pocket, right?
Yeah.
And somehow in my mind I was telling myself I need to go, this is my last $10, right? I can be fully depressed, or I can simply go overseas to Pulau Ubin, right? And kind of like find a bit of quiet time, like trekking, and I ended up like helping, volunteering some uncle some pakcik over there lah, right, to do stuff, clean the kampongs in the Pulau Ubin, and then and then I still had that like my last $10, right? So in my mind it's like, okay lah, if let's say I ended up like losing that $10, then I might just stay at Pulau Ubin and not come back. Like I don't have a and that quiet time kind of like put things back to perspective about like, is life all about that $10, right, in my pocket, right, or is there more to life? And true enough, it was over there I met up with friends and other volunteers who were there, and they were like, hey, Ibnur, come, let's go why not you tumpang my boat, go back to Changi point. And then you know what, so I have something on my bucket list, right, that I've always wanted to do, and it's to go to a kelong. And then so the thing is, right, when we went out the boat, and he was like, hey, why not we stop by the kelong? right before we go to the Changi Point, I'm like,
wow,
oh, this is like God, or God, the universe, like let me clear one of my bucket list to go to a kelong, right, and literally see what is it like living and then people fishing on the kelong itself, right, and then when we went back, right, the boat to Changi, he kind of like literally bought a meal for me lah, right, so basically the last $10 wasn't being spent. Yeah. So when I came back and kind of like reflected lah, right, about what, so on one hand also it made me think like what caused me to have that last $10, right, so it has to do with like financial planning, right, management of stakeholders, cash flow when doing my enterprise, right. So entrepreneurs, actually, when we are bootstrapping, right, like myself, like we sometimes forget when we take on like certain projects, right, especially when you are not the main contractor, right? When there is a delay in payment, for example, from the ultimate customer, and when we were still very small, we were not main contractors back then. Then the kind of the delay gets trickled down, right? And essentially at that point of time, because I do have people to pay, right? And therefore I felt that I shouldn't, because of my inability to kind of like sustain the cash, I don't pay them. Right. So basically correct. So basically I feel that I need to remunerate, right? So that's when I kind of like pay them, and then that was my last $10, right? Left, right? And I mean, that was when I started to reflect, and that's when I kind of like do a bit more cash flow, financial planning, right? Pick up skills, go out for courses, right? Learning from you, right? Meet up with mentors. How do you become a better entrepreneur, right? Like for me, I grew up not wanting to become an entrepreneur, because I have that mindset, right, that Malays can't be entrepreneurs. I mean, sorry, so I'm just being very like open out there, right? I grew up thinking that we are very good civil servants, right? We can go doctor, lawyer, engineer, right? Scientist, but entrepreneur was like, no way, it's like the idea, because it's like usually I actually, okay, Chinese means businessman, very stereotypical. I know we just talked about interfaith, right, just now, and now I'm like giving you all the stereotypes, right?
Stereotypes.
Well,
Chinese are always stingy.
And I didn't want to become an entrepreneur. I didn't want. Even though when I went to Silicon Valley to kind of like experience what it's like, right, working in a startup, the pressures and having a lot of capital, right, of running a startup wasn't something that I was trained for, right. And that was the mentality which I had. You need to be trained to become an entrepreneur, right? That was the mindset that I have, lah. And then I realized after coming back on Silicon Valley, a lot of the entrepreneurs, it's like literally building your plane as you go off the cliff, right? So it's like you have a crazy idea, right, that you want to pursue, and then you just jump, and then hopefully before you land on the ground, right, you quickly build your plane, it's like that, right? And for me, I'm kind of like at that point in time was like bootstrapping, right? So basically do projects, get money, use that money to sustain for the next project that we do, right? And then slowly we kind of grow our finances. And then that basically happened, that hit, and that's when I learned, right? And then so now at least I kind of learn a bit more about kind of investing, and then like be it crypto or funds, right, whatever, right? And then do a bit of cash flow management, right? And kind of like learn how to make a business a bit more viable and more profitable, I mean, it was a learning curve for me, because I didn't learn business development. These are things which I pick up from through people on the field
and through reflection.
Yes.
These two are very important. That's again education, where we go through experiences like being left with $10 and reflection. Because if you have experience without reflection, you will still end up with $10. But if you have the reflection, without experience, it is theory. What are you going to reflect about? Textbook. You read a textbook and reflect.
Wow. When you say this, right, it goes back to thinking and tinkering. Wow, macam one big loop.
Yes, tinkering is experience. Thinking is reflection. Wow, we have found the secret to life.
Yeah.
Okay. Hey, thinking it's late. It's 10:49. Hey, we're supposed to end at 10:45, but it's so fun talking to you. Yeah.
Okay. Kena extended, right? Like sometimes like you kind of forget and lose track of time.
Correct. When the conversation is interesting, when it's not, then I always want to end as early as possible. But it's late. Yeah, according to my nutritionist,
Yes.
She asked me to sleep before 11. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah,
let's do that. Let's try our best.
Yeah, like detox or something. Anyway, that's another topic for another day. So I want to thank all the people who stayed on for so long and everybody who gave very positive comments, especially Jocelyn Go.
Hi Jocelyn.
Wow, by staying on so long and giving so many positive comments, you win a special Starbucks macchiato from moi. Okay? Yeah. The only thing is you have to go downstairs to Starbucks yourself tomorrow and, and use the name was Eugene Seah. And if they don't know who is Eugene Seah, then
they have to sign up for your courses.
too bad for them. Yeah. Okay. So and Yaya says, Yaya, right? The very good photographer. Yeah. And he says this is one of the best talks I've listened to. Wow. Very touching. And
Thank
my
so
dear friend and client Todd Wayne Taylor, all the way from United States, man.
Oh wow.
And he says,
I miss the US.
Thank you for inviting me to listen with this conversation with Ibnur. I'm a strong believer that every person deserves the right to be their own person and grow their own beliefs without judgment. Oh, beautiful.
Oh.
That is beautiful. Wow, thank you. So everyone, please, if you know Ibnur already, don't know me, connect with me, okay? If you don't know Ibnur, connect with Ibnur.
Can. We are both on LinkedIn anyway. Yeah, so you can find us there.
Facebook, Instagram, let's grow this ecosystem where we embrace true respect, true education, and let's everyone experience change and sustainability.
Awesome.
Say yes to
abundance.
Testing you. Okay, good night. Okay,
all right, good night everyone. Thanks
Bye-bye,
so much.
everyone. Love you.